Welcome to Reaping Mods, guys. Today I am showcasing Spellforge, an engaging and convenient spell acquisition mod for the Xbox One. Now the mod is also available for PC, and I will have links for both of these down below in the details of the video. Looking at the mod in-game here, it will tell us that we also need one of the base spell libraries. Now, I am not currently using any spell overhauls or additives in this video, so I will just be using the base vanilla spell library in order to have our Spellforge have access to all the vanilla spells in Skyrim. So to acquire our Spellforge, we will need to buy the Spellforge manual from spell vendors such as a court wizard. Once we purchase it, and upon reading it, we will receive another book and are asked to import spells. Now we will need to import the spells we will be using with the Spellforge. In this case, it's importing the vanilla spells, since again I'm not using any other spell overhauls. So the mod will spend a minute or two importing the spells. Meanwhile, we can close the book and do whatever we like, and it will keep us updated on its progress in the upper left corner of the screen. When it is done importing the spells, we will learn Conjure Spellforge and are greeted with some options. This is where we can configure some of the mod's settings to our liking. We'll leave everything at default for now, but we can access these options again at any time by reading the Spellforge manual again from our inventory. So now it is time to conjure our Spellforge. Now this spell will require both your hands and takes a second to charge it up before you can fully cast it at the ground. Now we can cast this at the ground wherever we like to get started, but we can only have one active at a time. So casting the spell again will cause your previous Spellforge to disappear. The Spellforge also works well with the Cheat Room mod, as it provides quick and easy access to most of the in-game items in which to experiment with on the Forge if you want to speed up the process of this or are having some trouble with something. Once we have our Spellforge up, we will have three options available to us. Starting from the bottom, we will have Activate Spellforge. This will be our sort of starting point or our main hub of creation for spells and items. Moving up to the middle, we will have Archetype, where we can specify the school of magic. And to understand what the individual principles are for each school of magic, you can refer to the Spell Principle Reference book for the definitions of each. Now moving up above the archetype, we will be able to define the behavior. Now this will determine how the spell is delivered, such as casting it on yourself or casting it on the ground, for example. It will also let us determine how the spell is casted, such as a concentrated spell, like a stream of constant flames, or a charge and release spell, like launching a single fireball. Now, before we can create any spells, we will need some arcane resin. So activate the Forge and click on Resin Experimentation. This brings up an inventory screen where we will need to put in alchemical ingredients. Now, once we place some inside and we exit the screen, the Forge will tell us if we've created any reactions and if we put in enough alchemical ingredients to create any resin. Now the Forge will destroy all the ingredients you put inside, so I recommend only placing one of each ingredient inside until you know how much of each ingredient is actually needed in order to form some arcane resin. When we enter the Resin Experimentation tab again, we will now see what exactly caused a reaction, and in parentheses next to the ingredient's name, we will see the amount required to form arcane resin using that ingredient. Now, by default, we will receive 10 arcane resin for each reaction, but we can modify this by using the Spellforge manual at any time. Now, if you click on Resin Experimentation but don't put any ingredients inside and exit the inventory screen, it will still attempt to find reactions for what's inside, so you'll have to wait for that animation to finish and the prompt to reappear before you can use the forge again. So now that we have some arcane resin, let's check out the spell making side of things. Now, the spells we have access to in the forge are dependent on a few things. The spell library we installed alongside the Spellforge mod itself. In this case, it was the base vanilla library. Our skill in the School of Magic also determines what we can forge, as well as our total magicka. So as we begin forging our first spell, select your archetype and choose which School of Magic you would prefer this to be in. Then set any as your principal. Click on Set, and the archetype will change physically on the forge to match your selection of archetype and its principal. So it's pretty cool. Each archetype and principal combo will all have a unique look on the forge. After we have our archetype set, move up to the top and we will define the behavior of our spell. Now here we can change our delivery type or casting type, but for now we'll select any for both of them and set this combo. So having our principal, delivery, and casting type all set to any will show us all the available spells in the respective School of Magic that we have selected for our archetype. This means that it won't focus on a particular type of spell, like projectiles only. It'll show us all types and all kinds for that school, which leads us into the last variable we have in creating our spells, the complexity. So heading back down to the Activate Spellforge and selecting Spellforging, we can see the amount of arcane resin available to us for crafting. We can also set the complexity or difficulty level of the spell, ranging from novice to master. By default, each increase in complexity will increase the required arcane resin by 10. So an apprentice level spell will cost 20 arcane resin and so on. Each complexity level will also require a higher skill level in the School of Magic that we have selected as our archetype, such as destruction or restoration, etc. Now let's take a look at the novice level spells that we can forge. Selecting Synthesize Spell Selection will take into account all of our settings such as the behavior, archetype, and complexity. It will then open up an inventory screen with a list of spell tomes matching our specifications. When we select one, it will ask us to add spell schematic. Click Add and exit the screen. Now, you can add more than one spell at a time to forge, but be wary of the increasing magicka costs the more spells that you add, and be sure that you have enough in your magicka reserves. To finish forging our spell, or spells that we have chosen, exiting that inventory screen will also automatically equip us with a spell to cast at the forge. This process is known as enkindling. Just aim this spell at the forge and fire it until it is complete. Be sure to keep a safe distance as it will deal damage to anyone close to the forge. The forge will also drain a certain amount of magicka from us as fuel for each spell that we create. If the spell we're creating is too much on magicka reserves, it will fail, telling us just how much magicka is needed, and will refund us for the resin that we spent attempting to forge the spell. By default, a novice level spell requires 70 magicka, and each level above it is an additional 70 magicka. So let's say we already have a lot of spells already. Now, under Activate Spellforge, we can find the Spell Trapping option. Using this, we'll project a vortex that will remove any spells currently equipped in either of our hands permanently. Now, it will also refund us some arcane resin in the process. And this is great for cleaning up spell lists and getting rid of those lower level spells that you might never use again. Now, these spells can also be reforged with the proper materials in case you wish to acquire these once more. Now we'll move on and take a look at the item crafting. So with the Spellforge, we can craft scrolls and staffs, which will require certain ingredients and will also require the enkindling of the forge to finish their creation. A staff can be created with 1 firewood and 1 filled soul gem, as long as it contains a lesser soul or greater. Now, the spell in your right hand during the creation will determine what type of staff you end up with. Scrolls can be crafted with an inkwell and a scroll of paper. The spell in your right hand will also determine the results of the scroll created. Alright, that just about wraps up the Spellforge mod here, guys. If you enjoyed the video or found it informative at all, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you guys want to see some more mod showcases like this one. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you next time.